Hello everybody, and welcome back to part 4 of our Contemporary House series. In this part we're going to jump right into working on the stair set and probably some of the windows and doors if we get the time. But what we'll do is we'll toggle the roof off and actually turn the blueprints on and turn the first floor off, just so we can get a look at the stair set. And there are 13 steps, so what we'll do actually is we'll go into the second floor, we'll turn the blueprints off, and then here on the second floor go into this, and we should probably figure out where the stairs begin. So let's just do a really rough, we'll do a line up, make sure it's on the blue axis right there. We can turn the blueprints off again, and we'll drag a guide in from here, so it's roughly there. That's fine. Draw a line across. Now we can erase that line, and then if we toggle the blueprints back on again, the stairs kind of begin right here. So we'll draw another line across there, and we'll just drag it out past to make sure that it sticks to the red axis. Turn that off. There we go. And then what we can do is just push it down to the bottom of that, and that'll cut out sort of our opening for the stairs. So then what we can do is we'll toggle the blueprints on again and sort it down. I guess we'll go to the first floor layer. And now what might be easier is if we make the stairs a separate component, at least for now, and then we can incorporate it into one of the components later, probably the first floor. So now we'll draw a rectangle around the stairs. And then we can toggle the first floor off again. And the blueprints. Get that out of the way. Turn off shadows so we can see what we're doing. Now there are 13 steps. So what we can do is we'll just drag out, we'll say 2 inches. And then we'll just drag out a series of guides. And then we can actually just scale them so we have the right number of steps. And I'll actually drag one from the beginning as well. So there we have 13 steps. And I'll just grab the cursor tool and then hit S for scale. And now I can just drag them out the width of this box. And then I'll just go back to my rectangle tool and draw in each step. Then I can just delete the guides again. And what I'll do is drag this one up 14, 13, 12 inches, 11 inches, 10, and so on. And that way I can just scale the entire model up to fit the hallway. And I'll draw one across the bottom to fill that in, pull that up an inch, erase all these lines, both sides, and then drag it down an inch because I put in an extra inch I didn't need. And we'll turn on the first floor again. We'll triple click this, and we'll group it and say stairs. And then what we can do is just scale this up to whatever height we need. And we'll go, and oh my god, that big, go right to there, like that. So that matches up with the line there, except now, if I'm looking at this now, the top step is sort of the landing, which should be here. So what I'll do, go into the stairs, and we'll push this step all the way to the bottom, like that. Then we can just grab this again and scale it back to there. And actually, these are a little bit wider than we need, but because the second floor has this angled wall on it, it's going to be kind of difficult to adjust. So what we'll actually do, so go into the stairs, and we'll push that to there. And then we'll turn the first floor on and go into this group and pull the wall over as far as we need it to be, which is 1 inch and 9/16. And then we can push this side in 1 and 9/16, like that. And then we'll make sure that we do that with all of the other walls in this line. And then we'll make sure they're thick enough. So to make this a little bit easier, we'll drag over some guides. And then that's 6 inches roughly, so we'll just drag it to there. That's where that one is. And I think this wall was already less than that. We'll just drag this in 1 9/16. Yeah, and that's not the full 6. So drag it to there. Turn these off now. Delete our guides again. So here are our stairs. And they look a little bit steep. And I think it's because they only have 10 and a bit inch runners. But that's sort of all we can do. That's the distance of the wall, and that's the height of the second floor. So what we'll do, and just to add a little bit of detail as well, is we can go in to each of these, and we'll say 2 inches. So we'll drag down a guide 2 inches, and effectively what we'll do is draw a line across, and then we can drag this out probably another inch. And that'll give us almost a foot on these. And then what that will also do is add a little bit of detail to this so that they look a bit better. Alright, so that will do it for that. And we'll just go back and delete our guides. And so that'll give us a kind of interesting detail to the stairs. And if we decide to change these, maybe make these sort of floating stairs later on, we can go back and do that as well. So I think for now that'll wrap that up. We'll toggle the first floor on, and actually what we'll do now as well is go into this and toggle that to be part of the first floor. So that'll toggle on and off with the rest of it. And maybe we'll push this wall in a little bit as well, because this is where the stairs began, not necessarily where the wall should be. So we'll put that there, and if we just toggle the second floor on, or the roof rather. So yeah, let's pull this line up to meet with the roof so that it looks a little bit more natural. So now we'll toggle the roof off to see what that looks like, and that just continues that line there, so I can erase that. Alright, that looks pretty good. So now what we're going to focus on is these 3 main windows here. I just pull our image over again. You can see sort of how these all work and how they're all connected. And this one's actually a door, so this one will be a little bit different than the other 2. But they kind of follow a similar template, all these windows. They have the 2 lines and then the one going across. So these will all sort of be variations on that same sort of design. And we'll try to keep all the measurements the same. And so we'll just get into creating some components for the windows. So without being in any sort of component, I'm just going to start drawing a box. And make sure I'm on the red axis here. Drag it down. There. So now we have this box. And I'm just going to group this, and I'm going to say main window. So then what I can do is use this primarily as the template for all of the windows and just modify it a little bit. And so what I'll do is I'll pull it out to this line. So our opening here is 8 inches. So we'll just go into this. We'll take this, the offset tool, and we'll just offset this in, say, 1 inch. And then we'll offset it in again, another 1.5 inches. Then what we can do, take this outside one with control and just pull it to the other side. So we have this piece. Then we'll take this second one and we'll push this in 0.75 of an inch maybe. And then control push this to the other side. And push this side in 0.75 as well. This middle piece will roughly serve as the window. So actually what we'll do is we'll erase this. And actually, because we don't want to have these windows go right out to the edge, I'm actually going to push these in 1/2 inch. So that means we'll push these in another 1/2 inch. 0.5, 0.5. So then we'll drag this in 1 inch and do another one at 3 inches. And then we can pull this out 1/2 inch all around. Alright, and then we can just go around and clean up all these little extra lines. Reverse that face. Alright, and so we'll push this in 1 inch to there. We'll reverse that. And then this line effectively, once we're done all of the frames, the lines on the inside of this window, this will effectively be the glass that we can then go in and fill in after. So now what we'll do is try and figure out, I guess it's kind of almost if we look at it done into quarters, except the middle one is sort of removed. So we'll break this up into quarters, and we'll do the same sort of method that we did on the stairs. Rather than measuring it and breaking it down, we'll actually just draw 4 pieces, and then grab all of our guides, and then we can just stretch it right across to this side. So then that gives us 4 equal parts to this window. And then we can start drawing those pieces. So I guess they're about as thick as the edges. So what we'll do, we have, if we just drag this out, probably it'd be 4 inches. So we'll find a way, have say 2 inches on that side, 2 inches on that side. So it was 1 inch, that was 1.5 inches, and then that was another 1/2 inch. So we'll follow the same sort of window framing on the edges there. So this middle piece will be 1 inch, so it'll be 0.5 on either side. Then it'll be 1.5 inches on either side of that. And then we'll add an extra 0.5 to there. We'll erase this middle one, and then we'll mimic this same design over on this one. Like that, we can actually erase that middle line. And then we can use our rectangle tool and drag this up to the top. And that'll fill it in. So then we can just start drawing in these extra lines. Then we can just go along and erase these bottom pieces because we won't need these. And the same for the top. Just erase these filled in sections. And then just control pull over to the other side. And we only need to pull these side pieces as far as where they're going to line up with the rest of the window. So then we'll just pull that one to there. And then we can start pushing these in. Let's push that one to there, that one to there. We'll clean this stuff up after. Now what actually seems to be going on is they're not actually cutting through. So if I erase these lines, it's erasing the interior of it. So we'll just triple click this and say intersect faces with model. And that should resolve the problem. And we can just reverse these faces. Alright, and it's always good to sort of do one just to see what it'll look like. I'm not sure how I feel about these exterior pieces. So I'm just going to push one in, see what that looks like. I kind of like the look of that, but maybe we'll make it a little bit narrower. So we'll just pull all of this stuff in 1 inch. And just see what that looks like. And now I'm thinking that looks a little too narrow. So we'll actually go ahead and pull it out just 1/2 inch. Right in the middle. Alright, so I think that looks pretty good. And I think that kind of matches what we got going on here. And if anything, maybe we'll actually pull this exterior line in just another 1/4 inch on either side. Like that, just to give it more of a ridge on the exterior. Then we can go ahead and clean up these lines. And then we will move on to doing the other one. Alright, reverse all those faces and clean up all of those lines. And then we'll actually go ahead and draw in our window line again on these new sections. And then that. And then we'll erase these again because we still have another sort of crossbar to do. And that will also use the same dimensions as the existing line. But this one here almost looks like it's maybe a third of the way up, maybe a little bit more than a third. We'll use the same method we did on the previous one. We'll draw some lines up here. So we have 3 sections. Scale these up. Scale that up to the very top line there. So now we have our thirds. And we'll actually base this one off the bottom line rather than it being centered. So we need to pull this up 4 inches. And then these side pieces are 3/4 inch. So then we'll take the rectangle tool and we'll draw our lines across, fill in that box again. And then we'll control push these to where they're going on the other side. And really once you have one of these done, it's sort of done for all of them. You just need to go back and adjust all the little different sort of micro dimensions for each different window. And then we can go in and figure out what the actual heights and dimensions are for each of the windows so that we can modify this template. And this one's going to be a little trickier because we have these crossbars going down. So we're actually going to have to pull this through for each individual one because it's intersecting with the front piece here. And so it'll take a little bit extra time, but it still sort of operates the same way as the rest of them. So I'll actually draw these lines in, top and bottom here, and that will allow us to erase some of these extra lines without it erasing faces. And then we can just pull these through without having to pull all these individual squares through as well. And then we can just push these through to that line. Then we can erase these lines on all of these and pull this out to here like that. And then we can just go in and start erasing all of these little tiny lines. Alright, so that's all of that cleaned up. And then before we forget, we'll go into the back here and pull these out 1/4 of an inch because the backs, again, are a little bit wider than the front. Alright, so I think that'll do it for the window. So now we can do the top piece. And that will sort of follow the same dimensions, but it should be a little bit easier because we can now make it into a separate group. And it doesn't have any of those cross-section pieces. So I can just pull this down to there like that. Pull it over. And that should fill in. We'll reverse that. And we'll group it and we'll say, I don't know, triangle window. And we can offset it the same. It was 1 inch, then 1.5 inches, and then 0.5 of an inch. Now we can go over here and we can pull that all the way across. Just take our tape measure, drag it to there, control, pull it to there, and then that's offset 2.5 inches. So then we'll control push that to there like that. Erase this middle piece, and then push this in to there, and that to there. And then we can reverse these faces. And then we'll also push pull another line into the middle so that we can get our glass. And we can actually go back now and do all the glass in this window as well. But first, just reverse this. We're going to Materials. Just pick red for now. Then we can edit this color. And any variation of any color in SketchUp can be edited universally. So if you have a bunch of different faces that are this color red, if we adjust it, all of those variations get adjusted together. So what we'll do is we'll take this red and we'll actually try to make sort of a glass sort of tone. Then we can go down to opacity and just make it a bit more translucent. And this doesn't need to stay this way, but we can leave it for now just so it at least looks like glass. Just have a little bit of a blue hue to it. I think that looks pretty alright. So we'll leave that for now. Maybe make it a little bit more opaque so we can tell there's glass in it. So we can go back into this window and draw in our extra lines. Then we can just paint this, and we'll just check the other side as well to make sure that the other sides are painted. Sometimes it doesn't always work like that in SketchUp. Alright, so that's looking pretty good. And I think we'll just focus on these 3 windows here in this video, and then we can move on to doors and things in the next part. And because this window should be roughly the same dimensions as down here, we can just sort of copy and paste it. We'll just drag it into this corner here like that. Now we can check and see. And yeah, the opening here is actually a little bit wider and shorter than it is up top. So what we can do there is we'll just go into this and we'll push this up rather than adjust the window. We can pull that up to there so that it matches that bit. But because it's a little bit narrower, what we can do is go in and edit this window so that we can actually drag all these line sections over. And to make sure we don't actually edit the top window as well, because it's a component, if we go into this and say control drag that, you can see that it's editing that window. So if we were to change the dimensions here, it would actually change the dimensions up here as well. So the way to fix that is to right click and say make unique. But in this case, because the gap that we have is only roughly 1/2 of an inch, rather than going in and editing all of these lines to be moved or shimmied over sort of a half of an inch, I think what we can get away with is actually we just hit the S key and for scale and drag it over that half of an inch, because sort of the differences in these cross member dimensions and the window frame dimensions is kind of going to be negligible. So I think that will do it for that window. Then we can copy and paste this one over to here, drag it up. I'll put it right in the corner and drag it in a half of an inch. So now we're going to have to take a look at either shimmying this one as well, because this is another whole inch, or what we can do is drag the line over. So if you look there, we have 1 5 7/8, and then this here is 2 1 5/16. So I think we can probably pull this line over a little bit, because this one's already a much wider line. Just go in here and pull this to there like that. So that deals with the bottom window. But now what we got to do is go in and do the top. And if we just look at our plan here, the top window is also split into two. So it's likely that this one of these opens or this folds down. So we won't really worry too much about how the mechanism works. So we'll just sort of mimic the same dimensions that we had on the other window. So we'll just draw our line around, make a box. Then we can triple click that. We'll group it and we'll say window tops. And then we can go in again with our offset tool, do an inch, 1.5 inches, and then 0.5. And then not to forget on this one, you can pull down to the center. We can also do that again in the middle, but we'll mimic the crossbeam dimensions, which is 2.5 and then 4. So again, 1.25 on each side of this line, and then a half of an inch on either side of that. And then we'll go back and draw in some rectangles, delete our guides, and then we can erase these lines. So we can sort of clean them up before we even start pulling the lines through. So we can delete these window pieces, control pull that to there, just pull all of these through. Then we can go back and push the lines in. Push all those to there. Reverse some of these faces. And just in case, if there is sort of a split in this window, I think what we can do is we'll draw a guide here, like that. And instead of drawing in a bunch of new details and adding in the mechanism and all that stuff, we'll draw a line up 1/16 of an inch, and then down 1/16 of an inch. We can drag our rectangle across like that. We can delete our guides and push this in a half of an inch. And then what we can do is control push this section to here and push that in a half of an inch. And I think that'll give it a little bit of detail at least, so that we know that there's a split there. And then we can go in and add the glass to this window. So we'll just control push this to the center, reverse these extra faces, and draw a line across there and there. And then we can press B for bucket, hit Alt, and we'll sample the windows, and then we can fill those in. We'll just check the backs to make sure they're filled in. Okay, and I think that will do it for that window as well. And because the door is sort of going here, but does have this same top piece, we can actually just copy and paste that. We'll hit Q to rotate, and then pop in 90 degrees. Then we can drag this over to the corner and then push it in a half of an inch. So then we can just check and see what the dimensions are like on this side. And it is actually a little bit wider over here. So I think I'll actually pull it to this corner, or maybe not. So I think actually we'll just pull this line out as well. We'll go into the second floor component and pull that line to there. All right, so I think that's looking pretty good. So that's these windows finished, and next time we'll probably look into completing these the second floor walls, because they have still yet to be completed, and then maybe move on to some of the doors if we get the time. But that will do it for this part. Thank you everybody for watching. I'll see you next time.